Hello and a warm welcome to Big Picture. I'm Neelu, Vyas. 2 years after the proposed amendments to the Surrogacy Bill, the Union Cabinet has given a nod to the Surrogacy Regulation Bill 2016, paving a way for the regulation of surrogacy by setting up a National Surrogacy Board at the centre. Remember, India in the last many years has emerged as a surrogacy hub. But can this new move really regulate surrogacy market? Will the new legislation now prevent the exploitation of women, also giving them at the same time a reproductive autonomy? Joining me now, some credible voices. Dr. Shivani Sachdev Gour. She's the General Secretary of INSTAR, that is the Indian Society for Third-Party Assisted Reproduction. Welcome on the show.
Thank
Shilpi
you.
Jain, she's a lawyer in the Supreme Court. Kiran Chawla Kapoor, she's a social activist.
Thank you.
Shankar Agrawal, who's a former Secretary of the Women and Child Development Ministry, and also joining us on the Skype is Ramasubramanian. He's the Chief Consultant of the Indian Surrogacy Law Centre. I welcome all the guests on today's show of Big Picture, but I would like to start with you, Shilpi. The new bill says that the altruistic surrogacy is permissible, but the commercial surrogacy is completely banned. Can you just explain what it means in the legal context?
You know, it's a welcome move. It's a much needed law because in the absence of this, there have been instances where there were disputes. Sometimes the surrogate mother changes her mind, sometimes the couple change their mind. But I think it shouldn't be a knee-jerk reaction going from one extreme to the other. I'm hoping it's a balance.
Okay.
And they keep in mind the interest of the couple, intending couple who wants to surrogate, and the surrogate mother.
Okay. What is your view on this, Shivani? Do you really feel that the bill is apt and it really has given a big push to the surrogacy movement in the country?
See, when couples come to us in the clinic to ask, the first question they ask is, doctor, is this procedure legal? What we are doing for surrogacy, because there's a lot of confusion in the minds of the people. So it is a very welcome move that this procedure is recognized as a form of technology which can help infertile couples to conceive.
Okay.
The problem that comes is we actually don't know what is in the content of the final bill. Because there were some, recommendations by the parliamentary committee. Now, whether those recommendations are accepted and to what extent are they accepted, that is important. Because if you say only altruistic, do you know that 99% of the cases will not be able to do surrogacy?
Right.
It will be stopped.
But the draft of the surrogacy legislation is already in the public domain. But you're still saying that there are certain things which are not very clear.
Exactly. So the recommendations were that nobody wants a commercial or a commercialized or an exploitative process, neither the couples nor the clinics. What we want is a well-regulated process in which there is some compensation to the surrogate mother, whether it is for a medical expenses or whether it is for a loss of income for those 9 months or 1 year.
But if you talk purely about the intention, the idea behind bringing the surrogacy bill is to regulate the surrogacy market of sorts, which was going on all this while. But Kiran, do you really think that there were so many reservations regarding surrogacy as far as exploitation of women was concerned, renting of wombs was concerned, so many malpractices, came to the forefront. Do you really feel that this new bill will be able to deal with all these malpractices?
Yeah, definitely.
And put a curb on it?
Yeah. Definitely, this bill will support surrogate women especially and will promote the care of the child. Now, women will remain insured and 18-month care is also suggested in this bill.
So, when you say that, but this is the actual compensation when you talk about, but this is how they will be compensated, 18 months of care plus along with that the insurance, that's a sum which has been assured to
but
them.
One more point is to be considered as a woman who is being surrogate. We definitely compensate her as the woman is working, going to the office or doing any kind of the job. If we will not provide 1 year financially support to her, that will be not a fair deal.
Okay, so this 18 months compensation which you are saying is not enough. Okay, Mr. Agrawal, if I ask you, what are your thoughts about the new surrogacy bill? Is it a real push to the surrogacy movement, or there are still certain lacunas which are there in the bill and which apparently have not been dealt with? Do you feel so?
Yes, you see, ma'am, at the moment there is no law which can regulate or which is regulating surrogacy. in the absence of such a law, there are a lot of confusion and people are being exploited, and on the other hand, many couples who are legally and who are interested in having a child through the surrogacy, they are unable to do so. As Dr. Shivani said, that a lot of people who go to the clinics and they are not very sure whether the process is legal or illegal, and they don't want to get into any kind of legal problem.
So what you're hinting at is that the women who come to the clinic, the informed consent, the clause of informed consent doesn't actually exist. The women do not know the side effects of the process which they are going to undergo. Are you hinting at that?
Absolutely, ma'am. So this will help a lot to the society. However, when you say it will give a big boost to surrogacy movement, I'm not very sure whether that particular sentence is correct or not, because it is not meant to give a boost to the movement. It is basically a very big step and a legal step to regulate surrogacy so that the women in India and especially the poor women are not exploited. On the other hand, couples are being given a chance to adopt surrogacy process to have a child of their own.
Okay. I'll go to Mr. Ramasubramanian now. You have been dealing with a number of celebrity cases, and now that the bill is going to come into effect very soon, what are your first thoughts to the bill, sir?
See, the first thing what I can look at when I read through the bill is that in future surrogacy is going to be irrelevant and it's possibly going to be disappearing. I'll tell you the reason why.
Yes.
Of all the number of surrogacies that are happening in India, let's say 100, I would say at least 98 of them, probably 98% of them would be commercial surrogacy arrangements. And presently the bill in its current form bans all forms of gratification to the surrogate mother in any sort, through money, cash, or kind, or any way. Once you ban this, the surrogate mother loses her motivation, is point number one. And secondly, people might not be able to come forward. And if at all there is any surrogacy arrangements, there might be a possibility that people could be using a backdoor method wherein they want to do it in contravention of law, because in all reality we have to understand that the demand is so high, and demand for surrogacy is so high, and there are so many women who are willing to come forward for being surrogate mothers. Now with a legislation like this, there is a possibility that people could be adopting backdoor methods to do something which is presently legal. That's my biggest concern.
So
the banning of commercial surrogacy might probably be putting them into, or presently their rights are regulated by way of a surrogacy agreement, and probably that is one way of looking at it. But if you're going to ban the commercial surrogacy or the commercial element at all, then people might still be paid for it but not be documented, and their rights might be hampered, is what I feel.
But you raised a valid point, and I'm going to ask Shilpi to comment on this. As he just raised the point that it could lead to a lot of corruption. Are we going to see a scenario where you would encourage the brokers to come in, the middlemen to come in and take place because you have banned commercial surrogacy completely? Do you see that happening?
Absolutely. And I don't see the logic behind this intent that you ban commercial angle, because it's a respectful legal way of earning money. They know what the poverty levels in our country. What's wrong with two consenting parties? One is willing to be a surrogate mother. The other is, his need is being fulfilled. And some people compare it to prostitution. Prostitution is where you have sex with a woman for pleasure. This is for a noble purpose, which is to bring up a child. So it's incomparable. The deals will go on. You'll encourage illegal deals, under the table deals. And why will a person go through the process of pregnancy? And it entails quite a lot. If you are not, if money is not the motivation, why will somebody go through it? I mean, has to be a well thought out process. Legislation is serious business, and if they ban commercial angle to it, they're obviously not thinking in the right way.
No, but we cannot blame the government for what they have done, because there have been instances of exploitation. Shivani, you would like to comment on this? The underhand dealings, what she's hinting at is probably could increase?
See, we are aware that probably such cases have happened, and everybody feels really sorry that something like that could have happened, and people don't want it to happen. But I would like to ask you that the solution cannot be to stop everything, because if you do not compensate someone, let me tell you, I am sitting in the clinic, I am seeing these patients, I have spoken to thousands of surrogate mothers, nobody is going to come and do the treatment. It is as simple as that. So there has to be some amount of compensation, otherwise the process will just come to a standstill.
Okay, so Mr. Agrawal, how do you really bring up a fair compensation bit now that the bill is going to soon come into effect? How are you really going to talk about the compensation? How will you convince the government on this?
Ma'am, whenever there is an exploitation, exploitation cannot be justified by giving compensation. Whenever we ban some action, yes, it will give rise to corruption, because whenever you are banning an activity, people would like to find out ways and means of achieving that objective through illegal means.
Right.
But that does not mean the government should allow that. And the commercialization of surrogacy is in the present scenario, I don't think it is very advisable, and it's in the interest of the society.
Justified in presuming that a woman who is a surrogate is being exploited? Let her decide for herself. If she is being exploited, the courts are open to her and she can come to the court. But how can the government, you know, decide for her that it's an act of exploitation? For heaven's sake, I mean, she prefers to earn a livelihood like this.
One by one, please.
If it is exploitation, sorry, what about the family member also? Wouldn't it be the same for her? There is so much pressure on her that you must reproduce, whether she wants to or not, because there is no option open to them.
For example,
there is a specific provision in the bill which says that there is a presumption in the bill that says that a woman is being forced into surrogacy by her family members. That is something which is really beyond comprehension. There is a specific provision in the bill which says that a woman is presumed to be forced into the surrogacy arrangement.
Right.
I don't know what, I mean, how can it be possibly so?
But Mr. Ramasubramanian, my question to you is that when the government has banned commercial surrogacy and has allowed the altruistic surrogacy, how can you do away with this coercion element? Like, for example, there is a clause that, you know, it has to happen within a family, it has to be a close relative. So this particular clause, is it not going to be some kind of a stumbling block, and how will it really do away with the coercion part? How do you deal with
everything has got a relevance. I mean, I would not say that this provision does not have relevance at all. But the only concern that I have is that making it a legal presumption is the only concern. The relevance, I tell you, is that, let us say in a close family wherein there are like two sons, and let us say one son has got a family and other son does not have a children. And so I mean, you can obviously expect the family members to possibly compel the other daughter-in-law to probably be a surrogate mother to carry the child. And there might be a compulsion that might come up of that sort. And when you ban commercial surrogacy, of course, people don't have an option but to force each other for being a surrogate mother.
But Shilpi, I'll come to you again. As far as the definition of the close relative is concerned, that is also not very clear, because the basis is a moral basis. Now, how do you really define who is a close relative? It could be your friend, it could be your bhabhi, it could be someone within your family or whom you don't want to call a relative. So what is the actual definition of a close relative in the bill?
It's obviously left to the subjective interpretation of the term. Close will be interpreted as per the dictionary. There is no straitjacket definition of it, which will add to the confusion, which further narrows down the scope and the choice. And if you say that the presumption and the coercion aspect, that's a complete eyewash. If it's a close, family member who's told to do this, either she does it with her, with a nod. If she doesn't, then there is a fight in the family, and the kind of patriarchal society we live in, it will further, make the divide between the man and the woman wider. So what law are we talking about?
But what are the challenges you see when you deal with a person who's a close relative? What are the immediate challenges which you see?
If you go with your close relatives for surrogacy with them, you can face a process of the harassment regular.
Okay. What kind of harassment?
Without paying.
Okay.
Maybe it can happen because of any basic problem. Okay. Family members initially can start, okay, I'm ready to conduct surrogacy for you, but after pregnancy, 1 month or 2 month pregnancy, if their mood get changed, So what?
You mean to say if the surrogate mother changes her mind? Okay.
So miscarriage can take place if she will not take medicine, if she will hide the medicine.
Okay.
So any kind of the ill effect can take place.
Okay. So do you see this as a dangerous sign, Shivani?
Yes, actually there has been a case which has approached the legal representative of the society where the surrogate mother in the family has put a case of domestic abuse against the person for whom she did surrogacy because she later changed her mind about the whole process. So this is not something which we are just talking, these cases have actually come forward.
Okay. But there is a lot of confusion when you look at the adoption clauses and when you look at the surrogacy laws. Now, people go in for surrogacy because they don't have a child or they couldn't adopt for some reasons. So it's basically like there is a certain linkage between adoption and surrogacy. Now, there are certain clauses which are not applicable to the adoption laws. But here, if you look at the surrogacy bill, those clauses apply to the surrogacy bill. So how feasible it is, and can you just explain this confusion which is there?
See, adoption is something very noble, and whenever a couple comes to clinic to us, they are very clear in their mind. If they say, doctor, we don't think that we can provide that love to an adopted baby. We want our own baby by surrogacy, or we are okay to remain childless. Now, if we tell them that you don't have the option of surrogacy and you have to adopt, what will be the condition of the child who is adopted? So it's not for everybody. You have to have that mindset. Sometimes one couple is ready, like one of the partners is okay, the wife is okay, the wife says, I will love her more than my child.
Right.
But the husband may feel that I cannot accept some child that is not mine.
Right.
So it is not something which is for everybody. A noble thing which we should encourage, we do encourage. But when people come, they say, doctor, we are ready to take the pain of injections, of hormones, of repeated tests and invasive procedure. Why? Because it is our desire to have our own child.
Right.
So adoption is not something for everyone.
But even if you look at the legal framework, Mr. Agrawal, I would like to come to you on this, that the adoption laws don't allow adoption within the family. But if you look at the surrogacy bill, this clause of close relative, it has to be within the family. So if adoption laws do not allow this, how can you really allow this clause to happen as far as surrogacy is concerned? Is that not some kind of a precedent which is a little misplaced?
I think that we cannot compare these two things.
Okay.
That means adoption versus surrogacy.
Okay.
However, I do agree with most of the speakers that surrogacy should not be limited to your blood relations or your close relative.
Okay.
Ultimately, a choice should be given to the couple who are unable to have their own child through the normal process. Right. If they want to adopt a child, yes, they should be allowed to adopt a child in conformity with the rules, regulation and law. Similarly, if they can have a child through a surrogacy, they should be encouraged and they should be allowed.
But Mr. Agrawal, the bill very clearly says that it has to be a married couple. It can't happen with the unwed mothers or the single mothers. Foreigners cannot come in. So is the bill not narrowing down the loop of surrogacy?
Regarding foreigners, because today, as you said in the very beginning, that India has become a hub for surrogacy.
Right.
Why? Because people are very poor over here. So a lot of foreigners who cannot produce or they cannot have their own child, they are making use of women in India for surrogacy pregnancies.
Right.
So that is an exploitation.
I'll just come to you. Yes.
So that has to be eliminated. Similarly, for other cases, you see, this is the first step in the direction of surrogacy, and we are legitimizing surrogacy today. This is the first step. Maybe in due course of time, we will open it up a little further. But let us start with the first step. Let's look into the pros and cons after 3 years or 5 years, and then we'll review the law.
Yes. Kiran, you wanted to make a point?
It's not easy that once we are introducing the bill, converting it into the law, and after 2-3 years we will soon change it. When foreigners were coming to India, they were infertile. In India, they were having their child by the process of surrogacy. They were having hopes in their hands, and they were ready to compensate the women. Agree, the name was commercial surrogacy, but they were also supporting to the women. When you are talking about the exploitation of the surrogate
You mean to say
women,
that they were meeting up the economic requirements of the women?
yeah, medical tourism was also a point over there.
Right.
And when foreigners were compensating to the women, and the surrogate women was also getting benefit. So there should not be a kind of the point of exploitation.
Right.
If exploitation was there, so correction must be regarding the exploitation of the surrogate women.
Right.
Now the bill is protecting that kind of the right.
But if I could go to Mr. Subramanian, it is a fact that surrogacy, there were a lot of women who, because of the economic needs, were getting into this surrogacy business. Now, what happens to those women? There are so many women, thousands. We've heard stories about how the half women of Anand, they were involved in surrogacy. Exploitation, leave aside the exploitation part, but the economic aspect, the economic need, what happens to those women now? Because they will be allowed to deliver their babies only once, because that is also one rider in the bill?
See, basically, before I can answer your question, there are a couple of things I would like to point out. One is about this term exploitation. The term exploitation is so huge, it could possibly include everything. And the basic concept, what I've been repeating everywhere, I tell it once again here. Wherever women are involved, there is scope for exploitation. Wherever there is money involved, there is a huge scope for exploitation. Here we are talking about both of these together.
Right.
So essentially, exploitation of women can be, seen from a very different lens, and from a different lens, you can probably look at the same thing as the autonomy of the woman to make choices of her own.
Right.
These are two different things. The women, in not many cases, have actually cried out exploitation as such. The number of exploitation that we are talking about is a broader exploitation from the ethical viewpoint.
Right.
That is one point. I mean, one thing which I'd like to say, first thing. Second thing is, a lot of these women who have come forward for taking up surrogacy have benefited immensely from it. Let it be, as has been pointed out with regard to, foreigners taking up commercial surrogacy in India.
Right.
Wherein in India, the cost of surrogacy is a lot lesser compared to rest of the world. I would say that it is not like 10% of the cost what it is in US.
Okay.
Probably it is half of what it is in US. And what I would say is that, so what? It does not make a huge difference. People are still making their own livelihood in the way they want. I'm a lawyer. I use my brain for making my money.
Okay.
If somebody wants to use any part of theirs, there's nothing wrong in it.
Okay. Okay.
And
But
who are we to restrict how you should be using your, let us say your journalist should not use their mouth for these things, or probably if you use your mouth, it's possible in exploitation.
Right.
I mean, it does not make any sense in saying that somebody can use this and somebody cannot use this in certain ways.
Right. I do agree.
That is one thing.
I do agree with your exploitation bit that this is a too vast a definition of exploitation, how it's going to unfold once the law will be implemented. So we'll have to wait and watch as to how it gets unfolded. But my question to you, Shivani, now is that exploitation, the surrogacy bill, the altruistic surrogacy, all these points are there. But the moot question again is, what about the rights of the surrogate mother? What about the rights of the child? How well defined are they in the new bill? Because there are a whole lot of social issues, ethical issues, emotional issues involved. So how do you really deal with these aspects? And does the new bill really take care of this?
Yes, that is a very excellent point. And that was something that was really well defined, that the person who can be a surrogate mother, first of all, has to pass certain criteria, whether it is age criteria, how many children she has of her own, whether it is medical health check criteria, psychological assessment criteria. So all these criteria are laid down.
Okay.
And there are forms that we are required to fill in all these criteria. But the thing that was lacking was that a woman comes to my clinic, if I say she is unfit, she can go to another clinic.
Okay.
So how do you prevent that? You have a centralized system, like they have made this board. So everybody registers in that system, and only when you are registered can you have the IVF process of embryo transfer. So that is the positive part which has come, that now there has to be a kind of a registration process.
So you mean to say that there will be a tight leash on these, for example, IVF clinics which were involved in rampant corruption? Now there's going to be a tight leash on them?
It's not like all the IVF clinics are in rampant corruption. There are well-known clinics. If we are practicing ethically, maybe there are a couple of, in every industry, there will be 1 or 2% problems which are going on. So yes, we are happy that those problems, those loopholes will be closed.
Okay. Shivani, you have to say something, Shilpi?
See, this narrowing down of in this law that the only married couples who've been married for 5 years, I see no justification for it. I don't know what is the intent. It's beats all logic. What's wrong with a single parent, going through the... In fact, in a society like ours, single unwed mothers are stigmatized. So for them, if they want to have a child without marriage, surrogacy could be a very respectful option. You have to balance between regulation and right. I have a right to have a child, and if I have the money and there is a consenting woman who wants to be a surrogate, how can the government come in and declare it illegal, for heaven's sake? And likewise, this country needs foreign exchange. The doctors are making money like this. Okay, you need to regulate it, have safeguards that if there is violation of the terms, there will be penalty, there will be imprisonment, but you can't ban it. You can't say because walking on the roads entails accidents, so don't walk on the roads.
Okay, so you mean to say that we should not close the doors to the foreigners, to
single
the NRIs?
Parents or, live-in couples? Why? What's the justification?
Okay, your thoughts?
I believe that as a surrogate, women is protected now on the behalf of the insurance. Child will be considered as the biological and natural child.
Okay.
But compensation amount must be given to the surrogate women.
Okay.
And intended parents should not be tied in the boundary of to bring the close relatives.
Okay. Mr. Agrawal, your last thoughts?
You see, as I said in the beginning, that is a very good law in the right direction, because it is legalizing and it is regulating surrogacy in the country. We should not allow foreigners to take advantage of this, and most of the countries do not allow this kind of thing. Just because we are earning some foreign exchange, we should not allow our women to get exploited.
Okay.
However, as I said earlier also, that is a first step, is the initial step, and in another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, we will again relook into the entire system and the process and the law, and if there is a need, it will get amended accordingly, as per the needs of the society.
Right. Mr. Subramanian, you want to say something on the law? And is it really going to deal with the sticky issues when they implement at the implementation stage as well? The issues which are left out so far?
I feel this legislation is going to come out with more sticky issues, possibly more bigger concerns. I think courts are going to have a bigger role to play, because we are talking about fundamental rights of different parties. And hopefully, if the law is being followed to the dot, I really hope there is no much of backdoor work that's going to happen with this law being passed.
Right.
As we have seen in several other industries, this should not be something which we want to go that way.
Right.
But we also are looking at judicial interpretations of various kinds, wherein the rights of the surrogate mothers and the intended parents are balanced, and their fundamental rights are protected, including their right to have their own family of their choice. So let's look forward for it. Yeah.
Right. So remember, the surrogacy bill has to be first enacted by the Parliament, and then and these national surrogacy boards then will be formed at the centre and also at the state. But remember, the effectiveness lies as to how the laws will be implemented, and all eyes would be on that. Thanks to all my guests, Kiran, Shivani, Shilpi, Mr. Agrawal, and also Mr. Subramanian, who joined us on the program. Goodbye and thanks for watching.